Marshall Thurgood, a digital story by Alicia Chutur and Anita Sulibavi.
Marshall Thurgood was born on July 2, 1908 in Baltimore, Maryland. He was raised in a prosperous family, and though African American, he grew up playing with white and black children. He received a good education, and after finishing his basic schooling, he decided to go into law at Lincoln University in Philadelphia.
He later transferred to Howard University, an all-black school, and graduated. After receiving his law degree, he went into practice and became a member of the NAACP. He used his law degree to fight cases against racism and segregation. Shortly after a win in a case concerning a black boy who wanted to go to the University of Maryland for college, Marshall was appointed head councilman for the Legal Defense Fund in the NAACP.
Though starting out small, he used his skills to help many people in need: women, blacks, and anyone who was a victim of civil injustice. He persevered and fought for racial equality. His efforts eventually paid off in his first major victory, which occurred on May 17, 1954.
This major victory was in the case of Brown versus the Board of Education in Topeka, Kansas. The result was the ruling that segregation in schools was unconstitutional. This ruling fulfilled the 14th Amendment, stating that all people born in the United States are citizens and have equal rights, thus making them equal regardless of race.
The Brown versus Board of Education case actually consisted of 5 different cases from Kansas, South Carolina, Virginia, and Delaware, all concerning segregation in schools. Thurgood Marshall was the lawyer that fought for the side of Brown, which consisted of the 5 cases from the different states. The big argument was that though segregation was supposed to be separate but equal, the fact was, separation with equality became impossible, so the requirements making segregation constitutional were not being met.
This case basically overturned Plessy versus Ferguson, which ruled that segregation was okay. Brown versus Board paved the way for the start of desegregation in schools by ruling that segregation was unconstitutional, and this helped pave the way for desegregation in society.
After his big accomplishment of propagating the desegregation process, Thurgood Marshall continued his fight for racial equality. He was appointed into the Court of Appeals in 1960, and he used his power to continue the fight for equality and for crime victim rights. He basically made it so it was necessary to inform a victim of crime of their rights.
After much work, Thurgood was appointed into the United States Supreme Court in 1967 by President Lyndon Johnson. During his time in the Supreme Court, he was very blunt and never allowed corruption to seep into his verdicts. He was especially straightforward during cases involving racial segregation and inequality.
In 1991, Thurgood Marshall retired from the Supreme Court. He died January 4, 1993, because of health problems. Though his health had started deteriorating much earlier in his life, he had earlier refused to give up his seat on the Supreme Court, saying that his duty was more important than anything else.
Thurgood Marshall helped the NAACP fight for black equality, thus allowed the NAACP as a group to progress in their fight for civil rights. As an individual, he took many personal steps and measures to gain equality for all races, such as using his law degree and power for the causes. His contributions effectively paved the way for the desegregation process by establishing, at a government level, that segregation was illegal. The next generation to come would be raised growing up hand in hand, blacks playing with whites. just as it was when Thurgood Marshall himself was merely a boy.